best could be. I haven't seen my Super Nintendo since 2003. That's alright, I don't mind. I've got a Switch in the old SwitchAroo. My friend Mike and Jaymo too.
Welcome back to the Old SwitchAroo, where we're talking gaming retro with Mike and Jaymo.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Jaymo. In this episode of the Old SwitchAroo Lite Switch, instead of our normal focus on the over 300 retro games available in the Nintendo Classics catalog, we are reviewing a product that threatens to pull the rug right out from under us, the newly released Analogue 3D console, which many are hailing as the definitive way to play Nintendo 64 games in modern times. Subscribe or follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen so you can get all the gaming goodness delivered just how you like it. Now, Mike, if you had to guess, like percentage wise, how much of the Nintendo 64's original library do you think has multiplayer of some kind?
I'm gonna go just a solid 50-50 because I'm not sure.
More than that. More than that, you idiot. No kidding. It was a whopping 70% of the original N64 library has multiplayer. So I think it would be criminal to talk about this console and this new version of the console with two players only. Please welcome back to the show, Kyle from the invite-only Cinephile Community Stream Team. How you feeling today, Kyle?
Hello, thanks for having me again.
Oh, so excited to have you back. I asked how Kyle's feeling because we went hard at his house last night. Full 90s, pepperoni pizza, fruit by the foot, Sunny Delight, Nerds Gummy Clusters, and a couch full of friends playing Nintendo 64. I ate way too much. How much of the pizza's left over, Kyle?
Not much. I think maybe one of
Yeah.
multiple pizzas. So yeah.
You have a whole legion of boys helping you get the leftovers eaten up. But thank you so much for having us. We actually had a whole lineup of friends of the show. We had Margot from our season 2 episode where we covered Mario, and then we also had Jackie and Sarah who was on season three's Mario Party episode. So all great stuff and so awesome to sit down with you guys and play. So let's get into it. According to Analogue's website, a reimagining of the Nintendo 64 in 4K resolution, 10 times the resolution of the original, the first and perhaps greatest multiplayer system of all time. Analog 3D is 100% compatible with every original N64 game ever made. Region free, Bluetooth LE, not sure what that stands for, dual band Wi-Fi, four original style controller ports, entirely new, next generation analog hardware featuring 3D OS, engineered entirely in FGPA, no emulation. Analog 3D represents a milestone in video game preservation. It's not just a reimagining, it's a fully compatible hardware accurate recreation, fully compatible with the entire original library. After nearly 4 years of dedicated FPGA engineering, Analog 3D overcomes the limitations of software emulation. No input lag, no graphic or audio inaccuracies, no timing or frame rate problems. This is the N64 perfected and true to its core. I don't know. Pretty hype. So Kyle, Analog 3D had a long road to launch. How
Yeah.
long have you been waiting for this thing?
In fact, that's something I should have brought up last night. I bought this is Analog's Pocket it
Yeah.
was the portable for original cartridges for any game system. But I pre-ordered that in 2020, right after COVID. I was like, this is the dream. That took like, I think till the end of 2021 to ship. So then I was on their list. I was informed about this. So yeah, I pre-ordered this. I just looking at my email to see October 21st, 2024, and just got it at the end of November. So they sent emails along the way, like your heart's going to be broken, it's delayed. So it was a long road, but yeah, a bit over a year from order to arrival.
And I was reading about this. Mike, you'll appreciate this. You're a perfectionist, I think, when it comes to math and programming and all that stuff. They kept saying in these emails that Kyle received that they are 99% done, but they're just like that one last 1% to just really fine tune this thing and make it the recreation they really wanted it to be. They also let people, cancel their
Yeah.
pre-orders and pay them back at any time. Were you ever tempted to throw in the towel?
I was committed to this one only because I used to have the old N64 hooked up to a CRT monitor in the garage for the boys, even
Oh,
when they were growing
dang.
up. And I eventually sold it, and they still were bitter about it. So this was my attempt at redeeming myself. So I was not going to cancel this for sure.
Awesome. Awesome. You didn't give up.
Yeah.
And Mike, you prefer playing these games on CRT televisions, do you not?
I don't know if I'd say prefer. Like, I know that there's a distinction to it. Like, it's more that like I had a CRT much longer than most, just because they were like cheap.
Mm.
The retro gamers have now capitalized on that, and they no longer are cheap. So, like, I was in the market for CRTs at the era where much of the cost of getting a CRT was just being someone who was willing to show up and make it leave someone else's house.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so those have now gone up in cost significantly because you get into issues of like the amount of delay that you get. I think is one of the big ones.
Mm.
When you're emulating it, yeah. It's you were kind of Mike accidentally like sort of a hipster as far as like, oh yeah, you still have vinyls and like I still have a CRT television.
Yeah.
But Kyle, though, you also have a vinyl record collection.
Yeah.
And then I also saw you had, well, actually I know because we played before, the NES Mini, the Super
Mhm.
Nintendo Mini, the Sega Genesis Mini. Is there something about the physicality of this that's appealing to you?
It is. I don't know if it's just straight up buying package nostalgia for the most part, and I
Yeah.
fall for it every time. But yeah, I do much prefer, especially that when the first NES Mini came out, the physical controllers to me go a long way, especially the actual, not even a approximation of it, but the actual controllers were huge. So yeah, I'm a big fan of revisiting with as close to the experience as I can get, you know.
And it's funny because, Mike and I are, the whole premise of our show is to do all the Nintendo Classics games emulated on the
Right.
Switch. But it occurred to me in the bathroom right before we were going. That sounds weird. But I was bathroom thinking, TMI, that like, Nintendo Switch Online could be so much bigger. I feel like if they
Mhm.
marketed it differently, if they had a better multiplayer functionality and a way to have lobbies and you could join anyone who wants to play this old game. But it's almost like if that was handled better, Nintendo might start raising the price on it.
Mm.
And I thought about how awful that would be because like I just recently canceled my Game Pass subscription because it got to a price where I was like, well, I don't play this enough to justify like $40 every month,
Right.
but then the idea of being priced out of a retro game collection is super sad.
It really is. Yeah.
Yeah, so how did it feel buying these, game controllers and cartridges
Yeah.
and having
No,
them
it's
mailed
super
to you?
weird. Yeah, totally. It was completely strange. It's kind of one of those like I'm gonna do it, and this time I've learned my lesson. I thought for sure, oh, I'll sell it all, and it'll all be great, virtualized or whatever in the future. And then now the pendulum has swung back towards wanting the physical again a little bit. So that was great. There's a place called Game Dude here in LA, which is like a mecca for a lot of this stuff. So it's often like a nice little day trip. Yeah, Jeremy knows them, of course. But yeah, that's fun. And then yeah, the controllers. I know that's a separate topic, but even these cheap ones, these are just knockoff N64 ones. They're like 20 bucks on Amazon, and they're like honestly not that hard for. I mean, hard for me to tell the difference between that and the original plastic one. So yeah, it's been fun.
And you had the games we played last night were kind of unique. You got them in a sort of an unusual
Yeah,
way.
well, I got the first two I know immediately Mario 64 and GoldenEye, which are probably to Mario Kart 64, I should say, are my two favorites personally. But so I immediately ordered them when I pre-ordered this thing, and they've just been sitting around from eBay for a year. And then once this thing shipped, I was like, oh, I'll fill in the collection, got a few more. So yeah, it was very piecemeal.
But you got them from like a warehouse where they were original printings, but
Well,
they
they're
weren't in the
they're labeled
packaging.
as they're labeled as new, whatever, but they're not. I mean, they're like shrink wrapped. Whether it's legit shrink wrapped, who knows? But just an eBay seller. So maybe it could have just been like maybe the warehouse had too many. There was like a glut for some of those games in the day, but who knows?
Yeah. Mike, you were sort of unnerved by that. You remember what
You're
I'm
like,
talking
what is
about?
this? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think it's especially from the perspective of not being able to afford
Yeah.
brand new N64 games. It meant really that like when you were, especially if you're getting them either rented or used, like you got a copy of GoldenEye and you saw whichever version had the most stuff unlocked, and like that's the save file we're using. So to see it start up with 4 empty save
Yeah, like
files
this is
on a
creepy.
physical copy is weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mario 64, we booted it up and there was not a single star to be had yet. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is a virgin cartridge. Like, we're taking this thing on a journey. So in our normal episodes, we like to talk about the box art.
Mm.
And Kyle, you've been waiting on this thing for years and years and years. And I'm dumb because I was thinking like, oh, we could talk about the fun box art, but this is not on store shelves. This is online only purchases.
As far as I know, all in all, yeah.
But the packaging, I think Kyle grabbed it for us to hold up to the camera. I don't know if it's, or is it still nearby,
Oh yeah,
Kyle?
I have the unit, unfortunately not the packaging. So yeah,
Okay.
I wish, but yeah, if you haven't seen it, Jeremy will share it. It looks very much like the N64. So
Yeah.
a
The
bit
cons
smaller. Yeah.
it,
Oh
it
yeah.
shares the same lines and same basic shape of it.
Exactly. Exactly. But yes, unfortunately, I immediately threw the packaging away. I should have saved it for you. But it was very sleek. It was very sleek and Apple-like. I got the. I don't know if it mattered. They came in darker light versions, and so my packaging was dark. I'm not sure if it matches it, but yeah, very nice. High. Yeah, and the same was the case for the Pocket several years ago as well. They very high end. Once it finally ships, they ship it right. You know.
And
Yeah.
since this was online only, like, and I was checking, and they just listed as sold out.
Yeah, they do
Ha-
sell out fast. I know they've done individually. Like I think they have like a TurboGrafx 16 emulated one and some others over the years they've done. And I think they do fairly low batches and sell out immediately and then come back.
how much did this cost?
I think it was 250. Yeah,
Okay.
honest to God, I forgot. It's been stuff, but yeah, I think it was in the neighborhood of like 250, which is pretty high for this. But for me, the nostalgia was too hard to.
Yeah, it's just like they just list there's no like, oh, it's this much but sold out. It's just like it's just sold out. It's like, how much did this cost when you had it?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's I think they sell out if I remember even within hours or if not most a day when they announce these things. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's funny. I feel like the heat death of capitalism happening before our eyes has
Yeah,
made me sort of flippant about prices because like, yeah, that's a lot
yeah, for a
for,
retro console though. Yeah,
but it's also it's like, well, it's like $40 for a steak. So what
right.
is money at this point? You
That's
know?
right. That's
And I
right.
understand that's a very privileged attitude to have,
Yeah,
but I'm with you. So, but also, so it is an interesting idea though because this is not a cost-effective way to play Nintendo 64
right.
games
You've
because
got to
like
get the cartridges. Yeah,
you got to get the cartridges and like you compare that to like the cheapest Switch and then signing up for the Nintendo expansion pack, which is like, for the N64 games, it's like $50 a year.
yeah.
I don't
So
think that's a fair assessment.
why is that?
Um, where's Smash Brothers?
No, yeah, right. You have to wait till they release
Mm,
them.
true.
Yeah, like that's I think the big thing really is like you can say, okay, what about emulation, which gets into the whole piracy thing,
Right.
but it's not as though this is competing with a Nintendo service that is offering you the ability to play the same
Right.
games. Like I think um Analog is doing what NintenDO'N't at this point.
Yeah, Nintendo's not making new hardware for to
Yeah,
play it for
yeah, they're
sure.
not
Yeah,
making the new hardware, so you don't have a way to simply work with newer televisions.
yeah.
Um, Nintendo's has their own service, but it has a limited selection of games, not everything.
Hmm.
And it really feels like Analog is basically stepping up because Nintendo isn't doing this same sort of thing of like Atari actually released one of these same kind of things of new hardware that works with new TVs that plays all the old games. And Atari did it
Yeah.
themselves. And just like,
Right.
we're doing this, it's official. We've made it work with at least as many games as they can. It's a fairly complete list, but like Atari took this on themselves to be like, no, we're going to sell this thing so that you can play the original games on modern televisions. Nintendo kind of just left that open, so there isn't a different option.
Yeah.
It's funny because, we all expected there to be a Nintendo 64 Mini because they did NES, they
Right.
did SNES, and those sold like
Yeah, and then it
gangbusters.
just stopped. Yeah.
And it almost feels like that Nintendo decided they wanted to put their eggs into the Nintendo Switch Online basket, thinking that that would take off, and it kind of just hasn't really.
Mhm.
So speaking of comparing the two, one of the big draws of the Analog 3D is all the different display modes. I'm just taking off the Wikipedia article that lists them out here. It says it has 5 different display options. BVM, which is I guess is broadcast video monitor. PVM or professional video monitor, CRT, scan lines, and clean. Kyle, you hadn't really messed with the different display
Yeah.
settings until we came over last night. Do you have a favorite? Do you tend to go for the crisp high def, or do you like the filter recreating the old look?
Yeah, I liked the default, I believe, was PVM, PVM or BVM, one of those two, which was fine. It definitely had like a scanline style effect. And then we tried, what was the one we switched to last night for the most part?
I think it was CRT.
CRT, exactly, which I think I ended up liking better by the end of the night. But yeah, those were the two. And then the final one, what is it called? The most extreme
Oh,
Clean.
clean.
clean. Yeah, it was doing some kind of weird, I don't know what was happening with it, but it looked almost flattened or like a lens filter applied to Elizabeth Taylor back in the day where it's all smooth creepily. That was not my favorite one. But yeah, CRT or BVM, I think, or PVM were my top picks.
No, we made poor Kyle venture behind his television to plug in my Switch and the Analog 3D so we could press a button and go between the two modes to capture some content here. I like the super clean look. I don't know if it's just because I've been playing so many of these old games on the Switch, but I almost found it eye straining to go back to the sort of fuzzy look, which is
Hmm.
funny because like I just did a TikTok about Sonic Racing Crossworlds on the OG Switch, and for 10 more bucks you can upgrade to the Switch 2 version, which makes everything crisp. And so it's funny that like the original Switch is so old at this point that it has visual similarity with the Nintendo 64's
Yeah.
like sort of blurriness to it.
I think
Um,
I think I'd go the other way, which is that it was interesting to look at the comparison because from the analog 3D, I think it actually reflected visually a point that I've seen made, which is that a lot of people have this idea of what retro games look like,
yeah.
Hmm.
which is this very distinctly pixelated look. And it's kind of this point that's made of that is what the old games look like when you emulate them on higher
Right.
definition screens. But if you actually look at them on sort of the original screens, because of the nature of those screens, really the visuals are kind of designed in a way
For
that takes
that.
that
Yeah.
into account. And so you get things like better curves and fading of colors because the images were designed in that kind of a way. And that showed up a little bit on
Yeah.
when we did
On
the
that.
comparison between the two Mario 64s. I think is on the Switch, some of the stuff looks more jaggedly pixelated because it's not trying to
Yeah, it's like the,
do
the
that.
crappiness of the CRT is covering a lot of sins in a good way, right? So
Yeah, I wouldn't even say it's covering the sins, but it's more that it's designed with that in mind. Like I think
Mhm.
it's the same deal of like if or in spirit, like if you were to look at something that was shot to be in black and white
Right.
and look at what it looked like in color and be like, well, this looks horrible in color. It's like, yeah, it was never meant to be watched that way.
Yeah,
You go like,
exactly.
this Adams Family house is pink. What the heck is up with that? It's like, well, yeah, it's meant to look good visually in black and white.
Hmm.
You and so I think this is that same kind of thing of it's. I don't think it's covering things up so much as it was intentionally designed in many cases with knowing that was how people were going to see it, and
Right.
so you
That
did
was
what
the
looked
yeah.
best that way.
Yeah, that was like the delivery mechanism. So yeah, totally.
You pointed out, Mike, that like in Mario 64, the Lakitu and the little heads-up display in the bottom right corner in high def mode looks kind of janky, but when you go to the other filter, it kind of smooths
Yeah.
out and it looks more like the proper shape. I'm gonna blow you guys' freaking minds. Are you ready? Do you
Do it.
think that like old artwork is all smudgy and blurry because they hadn't invented glasses yet? Huh? Oh.
Wow.
I
Um,
mean, it. There may be some stuff where actually it is reflecting that the person doing it actually did have
Yeah,
eye
could
issues.
be.
I mean, the not in the exact same category, but like the whole there's canals on Mars thing is thought to actually just be an astronomer basically mapping the veins in his own eyes and not realizing that's what he was doing.
That's
Um,
great. That's intense.
yeah, and so you can easily get into situations like, yeah, this is building in things that you don't actually realize, or that the person doing it wasn't necessarily thinking about in those terms.
Right.
yeah, yeah. Well, so speaking of things that haven't necessarily stood the test of time, or have, I guess, I think one of the most intriguing things about the Analog 3D is they partnered with 8BitDo for the 8BitDo 64 controller, which I think Kyle can hold up for us to show off here. For those not watching on YouTube, it ditches the iconic Trident design of the original N64 controller, but it has a form factor, basically an Xbox controller. You got a joystick in the upper left, a D-pad underneath it, and then you have the six face buttons of the N64 controller, the B and the A, and then the four C buttons over there on the right-hand side. And I don't know, I liked it. I liked it. Kyle, what do you think? What do you, well, so you, Kyle, you have recreations of the old controllers and you have
Yeah.
this new modern one.
Yeah.
Which one do you reach for?
I reach for the old one, and it's not. I mean, yes, the convenience. I'm not. What's interesting too about these like little Amazon ones are from Hyperkin, I guess, on Amazon. They're cheap, and the cords are incredibly long for what I expected. So maybe the double the length I've seen. So like I can sit far back on the couch and do it. I'm just more comfortable holding the middle, whatever you call that, the middle of the joystick on the N64. That's like my jam versus the other hold and the back trigger. I just reach for it in Mario Kart so much. So that's my preference. But the other one is great.
A young man playing with us did, I don't know if I should say his actual name. I don't know. He did not like the old controller, and like I had to teach him how to hold an N64 controller. I felt very patronly, like
It's
young,
very
yeah,
weird. It's very weird that you explain hold the middle one. When you think about it,
right,
it's like
yeah.
yeah.
In fact, Mike, my mind is your mind. Um, can you think of one N64 game that would not work with the new controller?
Obviously, Sin and Punishment.
Yeah, so because Sin and Punishment, Kyle, I don't know if you're familiar with this one. It's one of the only games where
No one's familiar with this one.
you hold the middle of the trident and the left.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah.
weird. Yeah.
Yeah, because you move strafe with the D-pad and free aim with the
Uh,
joystick. It was essentially a dual stick
huh.
game years and years before that.
And I think it's
Um
worth noting with that, because I think that leads to sort of my stance of not liking that new controller. Um, like, because Sin and Punishment was basically a developer decision of, hey, what if we made you use these two things instead,
Hmm.
and built a game around the
Huh.
concept.
Huh.
Is and I think this has shown up a lot with Nintendo controllers have evolved a lot over the years. Um, if we want to use evolved, that implies some level of improvement over time, I think. But they're all very different.
Hmm.
And I think there is a situation where a lot of people go like, okay, well, yeah, well, this modern layout of controller is the best layout of a controller. And all issues of that argument aside, if you look at the old games, especially for something like Nintendo, who did sort of take this seriously, these are games being, designed to be played on Nintendo systems. They're being designed with the controllers that they're going to be used with in mind.
Right.
And so I think there's an element of they play best on a controller like the controller they were designed for, because things are laid out in a way that makes sense with those controllers.
Yeah.
but Kyle's dog kept getting caught in the wires.
There is that. There is that. Yes.
Oh no, whatever her Katie voice is. So I don't know. I just love a good wireless controller. And so Mike, when you got the N64 controller for the Switch, because I always get Mike the controllers for the Nintendo Switch Online. That's right, Mike. I always get you them. Um, you said the joystick didn't really hold up, but I felt like the 8-bit Do had a better joystick. So that's why I preferred it. Um, no.
I had no problems with the joysticks that we were using last night.
Okay. Okay. So you think that the Kyle's facsimiles might be a little bit better than the one Nintendo officially made?
Could well be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard to remember. Yeah, I couldn't tell like muscle memory wise. I couldn't tell the difference on those knockout, but maybe I don't know. Could have been lost to the sands of time. So yeah.
So as far as how the console runs games, I thought it was totally comparable to Nintendo Switch Online, which probably speaks more to the quality of the emulation happening on
Mhm.
the Switch, because this is just an N64 down to the chip level,
Yeah.
is it not?
As far as I understand, I think it would have to be pretty close to be able to. use the original cartridges. So yeah.
So we tried out Kyle's library of Super Mario 64, Ocarina of Time, Super Smash Brothers, Mario Kart 64, and GoldenEye. But Kyle, you got to save one of these games and kill the rest. What's
Oh,
the
if
one
I
you're
it'd be
saving?
hard, but I have to go with Mario Kart 64 if I had to pick. So
Dang. You'd do
personally,
that to your wife. You'd take
I
Ocarina
would.
away from her.
I'd take it away. Yeah. So yeah.
Zero hesitation. Cold
Yep.
as
Done.
ice.
Done.
Mike, you'd be the same. You'd save Mario Kart 64.
I think it's the right choice. Yeah.
Yeah. Stop using those terms. Um, but I don't know though. I thought it was so fun to gather on a sofa after all these years.
Yeah.
It ran great. I guess it is doing by default an overclocking of the hardware so that games like GoldenEye no longer suffer from really bad slowdown. Although interestingly, you can turn that off. So Mike, I thought you'd appreciate that because Mike, have you ever seen a speed run where slowdown is used as an advantage for a speedrunner?
Or slowdown is used as an advantage.
Yeah, because like you can kind of,
Mm,
matrix.
that's crazy. Oh,
Possibly. I know I've seen ones where slowdown gets involved, but it kind of
Yeah.
varies. I think it sometimes depends on how they're counting.
Well, I think what's neat about the analog 3D is that like, it does kind of give a new option for the speedrunning community because it is so faithfully recreating the original cartridge. In fact, you can even argue it's a better option than
Are they
emulation.
are they accepting it?
I don't know. I think it's too new.
yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I was gonna say that would be my question because with various technologies they go back and forth on that.
Yeah.
Right.
You're talking about Nintendo's stance on analog specifically, or
No, the speedrun
oh
communities
yeah,
because
yeah,
they
yeah.
do track how you're playing them,
Right.
and there are situations where they've determined that for certain games certain things are not acceptable.
Right. Isn't that what got the King of Kong disqualified recently or whatever? Yeah, some kind of emulator that was not qualified. Yeah, it was crazy.
Oh, thank you for reminding me about that movie.
Hmm.
I think those get slightly further into like just is it the original thing or not, whereas
Hardware or not. Yeah.
more the console stuff tends to be a little bit more flexible, but you do get into things where it is like everybody plays the Japanese version because it's
Mhm.
slightly faster and that's just sort of accepted.
Yeah.
But I think that exists more on the what game version you're playing
Right.
than it does on how you're playing it necessarily. But like there's a huge amount of other factors that weigh in there. If you get into are you playing PAL versus
Mhm.
NTSC because there's different frame counts and
Yeah.
it is complicated in that sense. Like honestly, I'd be more curious to see a speedrunner play on this to see how much it really does replicate what they're
Right.
expecting because there is a lot of the issues and I think even analog 3D in their description kind of points to this when they're separating out from emulation is that this is going to behave it's supposed to behave exactly the same way to the frame from what you would expect on the original hardware, which does suggest that it is exactly equivalent,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
also that it's going to be the speedrunners that notice that because for
Right.
something of like frame perfect stuff, you know, I'm not getting second perfect stuff when I'm playing some of these games, let alone frame perfect,
Yeah.
whereas it's the
Totally.
speedrunners that'll notice it.
Yeah, yeah, because that's like surgical precision. Some of these
Mhm.
speedrunners, or I think the ones we've all heard about.
I think
Um,
surgery is less precise,
yeah,
honestly.
probably.
Yeah.
My dad knows about that. So I'm not gonna tell you the details unless you give a review, and then I will spill it all.
Yeah.
So leave a
Right.
like or a comment. Kyle, what's next for your analog 3D and 64 library? What's the next
Yeah.
cartridge you're gonna
That's
order?
a good question. I mean, these are like definitely my top five if you were to ask me. So I gotta think back. I have much more nostalgia for NES and Super Nintendo games than I do for this era. I was certainly into these big ones, but then I didn't go that far. I was like in college at the time. I was a little bit
Yeah,
busier. So I gotta see how I branch out. But
I know what Mike's would be.
what's that?
Cruising USA, right, Mike?
I mean,
And
it's definitely a solid entry.
yeah.
Yeah, because
Well,
Mike's been waiting for that game to be added ever since
oh
we started
yeah.
doing this show, and now
Yeah.
it occurred to me like he doesn't have to wait
Yeah, you
anymore.
could
He
get the
could just
cartridge.
just get an analog
Yeah.
3D and
Right. Yeah.
200 and something dollars
Yeah.
later. There you
I'll
go.
probably browse the aisles at Game Dude and see what stands out to me.
Oh,
What I
that's so
remember.
fun.
I
Yeah.
would
That's
say
so fun.
the other pitch there would be Rogue Squadron.
Oh yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
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 Mike fell out of a chair playing that one because he was coming out of a nosedive. All right, well, guys, I think that covers it. It's time to declare the Analog 3D as a Nintendo or a NintenDON'T. Kyle, our guest of honor here, the only person who actually owns one right now.
Yeah.
Would you
Yeah.
recommend it?
I definitely would. Yeah. And Nintendo, like to your point, it bring like the just the ability to have the in living room experience and pizza party, whatever, is what made the system great. I think so for sure. Nintendo.
So I'm gonna sprinkle a little spice on there. Okay,
Nice. Nice.
I feel like for the price, right? I feel like you get a Switch and Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack
Sure.
because
Sure. Yeah.
the young man who played with us, who shall not be named, was very eager to jump into a bunch of other games, and I feel like
Hmm.
the ability to have this huge library without breaking the bank, and then I'm a dirty cheater on my Switch too. I can rewind N64 games. I legit don't know if I would have enjoyed Ocarina of Time as much if I could not save state it.
Right. Right.
So
Sure.
I'm gonna say not taking anything away from what they've accomplished, but for the type of gamer I am, it is a Nintendo, mostly because of price.
Yeah.
Mike, where do you land?
I think it depends on someone's starting point.
Mm,
Okay,
I think if you are someone who is heavily after the N64 games, and
okay.
you especially if you still have them,
mm,
like I still have my old N64 games.
So does that make you
And so I think if that's your starting point, I think this is the obvious way to go. A Switch isn't worth it if that's what you're after.
mm.
okay?
Um, if you are already at the starting point of a Switch, it helps. There's games on there that are not on Nintendo Switch and games that never will, but because you're still having to buy all of the games, I think if you're starting at a Switch, it's a lot easier to just accept what's available
Right.
on Nintendo Classics and kind of be content at that for not that much a year than to drop the amount of money it would take to get that and then get the games. So
Okay.
it depends on what your priority is.
A fama context. Okay. Well, guys, I think we're gonna call that game over for today. Kyle, it's always so much fun to talk tech with you, and thanks again for hosting us last night. Before you get on out of here, why don't you tell our listeners how they can join the stream team?
Sure. If you go to streamteam.club in any browser that you like, and you can sign up there, we'd love to have you.
Yeah, we do live streams once a month. When you are listening to this, we'll have just recorded one on Gremlins, which is a holiday movie, right?
Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
Never seen
Exactly.
it. Never
Yeah,
seen
I
it.
went to a Christmas themed haunted house for it a few years back.
Oh, that's pretty sweet.
Like the
Yeah,
haunted house was during the holiday season.
yeah. It was like when you left, they had hot chocolate and cookies and a printed list of Christmas lights to go look at nearby.
That's pretty sweet.
Nice.
Yeah, it was really awesome. My wife did not like it. She did not really know what Gremlins was going into it, and that's the
Is
only
it
reason
sc
she went.
is it scary?
I mean, it
Yeah,
depends. I guess if you were little, when I was little, I felt scared by it. Yeah, for
That's
sure.
the whole journey. Well, you know what? Sign up on streamteam.club to hear my
Yeah.
take on it. And until next time, guys, please remember to like, follow, or subscribe to the Old Switch Aroo and rate or review the show wherever you get your podcasts. And you can visit
yeah.
www.theoldswitcharoo.com to find all our social media links. And we'd love to hear what you thought of this episode or what we're hoping to hear in future episodes. And of course, you'll find a link to our Discord. You can talk games, play games, and even make a friend or two. Kyle's in there, Mike's in there, I'm in there. As always, guys, thanks for listening to the Old Switcheroo, where we've been talking gaming retro with Mike and Jaymo.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Jaymo. Game on, everyone.